Welcome, mothers and others. Today, I'm so excited to bring you three wonderful candidates that are running for offices here in Texas. They are all running for Texas House. First up is Elva Curl. Elva is running in House District 112. And in addition to being a longtime member of Mothers Against Greg Abbott, Elva has a strong public service background with experience in the City of Dallas Public Works Office and in the City Manager's Office. She is ready to lead in Austin for her constituents. And her district includes the northern and eastern suburbs of Dallas. Welcome, Elva. I'm so glad you're here. Yes. So Elva, can you give us a couple little things? I'm going to go through each of you. Can you give us a couple little things that you want to say about you and your campaign really quick?
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I love your organization. I love that it's like scrappy, and I think that is what we need here in Texas because, we've been under Republican rule for so long. It's been 30 years, and they really made a mess of things, and people are getting fed up with the status quo. And that's why my campaign has been so successful so far in getting to know people and talk to them and getting them to come out to events because of people are just fed up. I have 75 great volunteers. I didn't have a primary, so we've been knocking on doors since January. And it's been so much fun getting to know this new district. As you know, we almost won this district in 2020. We lost it by 222 votes. And so people are fired up and they're ready to go. A little bit about me. I'm the firstborn daughter of a Mexican immigrant. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. And I went to Texas A&M for my undergrad. I went to UT Dallas for my master's in public affairs. And, I have a lot of experience in constituent services and government work. I really am a public servant at heart, and I just want to serve the people of House District 112.
Great. Thank you so much, Elva. I'm so glad you're here. It's great to hear your background, too. It's wonderful. Next up is Jonathan Hildner. Jonathan is in House District 54. Jonathan is a native Texan who grew up in Killeen. He co-founded a community support nonprofit group called Let's Move, and he worked together with local organizations to ban no-knock warrants and get cannabis decriminalized on the ballot. His district includes Bell County. So welcome, Jonathan. I'm so glad you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about your campaign and tell us a little bit about Bell County? Because I'm hearing a lot about Bell County in the last 24 hours.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much for having me on here with friends like Frank and Elva. I'm running to be the first Black representative and first Democrat since 1996 in the State House district against one of the architects of Texas's abortion ban. My opponent co-authored the trigger law that went in effect last week. Based on our district numbers, our incumbent has only a 0.3% advantage over us. That means that we only need to raise turnout by 5% in 6 key voting precincts to get to our total win number of 34,000 people. As you can see behind me, this is the map of the infamous donut district. The yellow on the outside is my district, District 54, and District 55 is on the inside of that. In HD54 votes blue. HD54 votes blue down ballot more often than at the top of the ticket. From data that we've been collecting through allied organizations, confirms that we're looking at a Republican advantage of that 4%. Let's see. Right now, this district needs to be worked, and it needs to be worked heavy. And we've been running for a year and 2 months now, and really just trying to build the infrastructure here in this community to flip this seat. And so, we don't have the population that Dallas or San Antonio has, and the political wherewithal that you guys are, out here inspiring. But here in our community, we have some people who are extremely fired up. They're ready for change. They're ready for a new representative, and I'm ready to be that here in District 54.
Great. Welcome so much. So I have to ask you a quick question about Bell County real quick. So
yes,
I was told today that it is one of those counties that they consider pretty purple and
yes,
like surprisingly purple. So we're not putting enough resources in Bell County. So would you say that?
So, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Would you say that that's true?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Bell County, Bell County has been underinvested in for cycles, back. Last cycle was the first time it had been targeted. We threw a bunch of money at the race and we didn't, really attack field like we need to. We've had the opposite focus here recently. And we knew that this election is going to be one in the field for us. We have an expansive field program. And so we need, everybody's help in terms of funding. We need everybody's help in terms of IDing people, because it is such a transient community because of the military base that, we've got new phone numbers, new addresses every single month, really. So, Bell County is extremely purple, and we've got an opportunity to flip this cycle.
That's great. That is so good to hear. Okay, up next is Frank Ramirez. Frank is running to represent House District 118. He is representing the community that he grew up in, and he would like to bring in more infrastructure and education dollars to San Antonio's South Side. He also has a strong public service background with experience in the Texas Ledge on the staff of City Councilwoman Anna Sandoval. Welcome, Frank. Tell us a little bit about you and your district and just your campaign.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here. It's great to be amongst friends, and it's great to hear that we're all working together this cycle to prove up and down the ballot that progressive values, common sense values are Texan values. And we're excited to show out in this upcoming November election. The situation is this, right? We live in an environment where we are being extremely polarized extremely quickly. And we need to make sure that by showing who we are at the polls, when we're taking votes in the House or whatever level of government you're taking these votes in, that you're doing it for the most people, for the most progress. You're doing it to expand our rights here in the state of Texas, not to restrict them, not to make sure that we are going 50, 60 years back in history. So in my district specifically, some of the key issues that we see and find are inequity, right? So we see a lack of dollars going into our public education system, and not just in this district, but across the state. What does that translate to? That translates to more money coming out of each and every pocketbook of homeowners in the state of Texas, because we have to make up the deficit that the state of Texas and the leadership of this state is failing to give to our public education system. That means right now we're funding our public education system at 30%. Guess what? In my home district, we pay $1.40 for every $100 of your home's valuation. And if your home is worth $300,000, well, now you're looking at paying upwards of $4,000 just to pay your school taxes. And that's not including every single other taxing entity up and down your tax roll. We have preeminent issues here in the state of Texas that we have an opportunity to solve. All it takes is flipping seats like Elva's, flipping seats like Jonathan's, like Brittany Verdell, like Mahela Blessa, up and down the ballot here in the state of Texas, to flip the 9 seats necessary to either gain parity in the House of Representatives or to take the majority here in this state. And so in my district specifically, I ran in a special election last year where we narrowly lost against Greg Abbott's handpicked candidate, John Lujan, when they enforced policies like you have to be in line twice to vote for the constitutional amendments and the special election in 118. You have your ID twice whenever you want to vote in either of those elections. And you can only vote inside the geographic areas of the district, not at every voting center like we have for every other election in Bexar County. And so this time around, after redistricting, we went from 67% Latinos to 47%. We lost 20% of our Latino population in an effort to keep this seat Republican. And we're here running again to tell them that my community, our community, this state is not going to accept that. And we're working hard day in and day out to provide sweat equity at the doors and bring the message to people who haven't this message in several decades. And so we feel confident that with our 51% to 49% advantage over the incumbent Republican representative, that we're going to flip this seat November 8th, and we need every single person's help to do so, specifically moms who are just as pissed off about Greg Abbott and his inaction as I am. So thank you again for having me, and forward to answering any questions here in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, That was really great. I'm so glad that you voiced that. I love South San Antonio. I do. I mean, the people there and the culture there, the people are just they're such good people. And so I have a lot of respect for the San Antonio area, and I love South San. So I'm really glad that you're here, and they couldn't be represented by anybody else who could possibly be as nicer and well qualified as you. So thank you so much, Frank. I'd like to start off at the top with let's start talking about education. So that's something that we're hearing a lot about right now. Just education is a huge concern in Texas amongst all kinds of parents for a variety of reasons, right? So our group has many teachers and parents who support our teachers. We're seeing school districts across Texas limiting the access to books, the access to history, and some districts are also thinking of different kinds of ways to pay their teachers a living wage. Very important, because it's really hard for teachers to live in cities like mine, which is Austin, Texas. So those things are pretty important. So teachers are leaving or thinking about leaving their profession of choice, teaching, because they can't make a living off of it, and also because the stress and the pressure of teaching is just unending. So can you tell us a little bit about what your plans are to fix the Texas educational system? So let's go right ahead, and we'll start with Elva.
Yes. Well, the first thing that we need to do is to vote all of these extremists out of office. My opponent has been in office for 12 years, and she used that time to really damage the public school system. And she supports, charter schools. She supports vouchers. She took several votes last summer, to prohibit. There was Representative Herrero had presented an amendment to prohibit the use of state funds for a school voucher program, and it failed, but she voted for it. She voted for less oversight for charter schools, which, as you know, charter schools suck up a lot more funding per student than public schools. And she voted for that so-called critical race theory bill that, there's no critical race theory being taught in Texas public schools, K through 12. And, you tell people these facts and they choose not to listen. She also voted against protecting teacher pay raises, which it just makes no sense. Our teachers are leaving this profession in droves, as you mentioned, and we need to do everything we can to retain these experienced teachers. I do not want to go the way of Florida, where if you have a pulse, they put you in a classroom. I have two little girls, they're 6 and 11, and I want them to go to a great public school, just like I did and just like my husband did, because it's very important to us for our girls to be educated, like many of us have been. And here in Northeast Dallas County, we had a takeover, almost a takeover. This far right out of state PAC came in and spent $100,000, over $100,000 on 2 school board races for my daughter's school district, Richardson ISD. And the people here, they've awoken a giant. They fought back. We had folks block walking, knocking on doors that had never been politically involved, and they saw the danger to our schools and they fought back. And we actually won those 2 seats, which is great news for me because those districts overlap with mine. We found a lot of voters that were interested in protecting public schools. And one of my friends, her name is Vanessa Pacheco, she actually went to a runoff and she increased the voter turnout from the election to the runoff, which I think is great news because people are paying attention here in Texas. And like Frank said, we have to increase the amount of money that the state is investing in public schools. And, the Republicans, unfortunately, have shown that they're not interested in doing that. They're interested in having charter schools and, giving their friends, I guess, contracts for these charter schools and not having any state oversight for these schools. So that is what I would do if I'm elected. I will make sure to protect our public schools and make sure that they're well funded.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, Jonathan.
Well, it's great going after Elva. That was phenomenally said in House Finished. I fight to protect, our schools 100%. For us, we ask the question when we go into this, the incumbent in this seat has touted his education background and his family's relationships and connections in our school district here for many decades past, but has been, receiving funds from Texans for Education Reform who are advocating to privatize schools. We ask after hours of listening to teachers in this community. I know that they have not been heard by our current representative. They've organized, protested, and pleaded to our community leaders all to fall on deaf ears. When asked what is wrong or what we can do to make a change, they explain just how deeply systematic their complaints are and often reply with a bunch of different things. And so we have 3 policy actions that we commit to going to Austin and fighting with and for to continue to protect our teachers and educators. Number 1 is increasing pay of all staff to include a mandatory COLA % increase for future, increasing retirement benefits because KISD has a higher turnover rate than the state average. We have multiple school districts in my district, but Killeen ISD is the largest school district, and so I use them as sort of a talking point there. Number 2 is ensuring each school has equitable access to supplies and resources. We all have the friends that put up the GoFundMe account right before teachers who right before school starts because they've got a $50 stipend to buy enough supplies for hundreds of students. That's ridiculous, and we need to be able to make sure that they're already giving so much time and energy and heart into taking care of us and giving them the education they deserve. Last thing they need to be doing is spending their money making that happen. And that goes into Elva and Frank's point of funding our schools and our teachers. And number 3 is removing from the school grading scale. We just saw, our schools get graded, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And you can see the true inequalities in the types of communities in just our district, how different they are from the school that's in the north side, downtown, urban area to school that's in the suburbs. And, we've got to, especially when they're under the same umbrella of the same school district, there's no reason why, our schools are being treated differently in that aspect. And so I am anti-voucher. I'm anti the privatization of schools. I'm a KISD graduate, and I'm committed to fighting for our teachers and educators.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Frank, you are up next.
Thank you. And just as my 2 future colleagues put, it's only the right thing to do to enforce legislation that really helps and subsidizes and reinforces what our teachers are doing on a daily basis in their classroom. I come from a public school district, Harlandale ISD in the south side of San Antonio, that is 95% Hispanic and 90% economically disadvantaged, meaning that 9 out of 10 students that go through this school may not have food at home whenever they get home from school. They may not have homes that are safe. They may not have a home at all. And so it's not only that we're relying on our teachers to be teachers, to teach them the curriculum set by the state, but we're asking them to be counselors. We're asking them to be friends, and in a lot of cases, family members that the kids do not have. And so it's important to also recognize that when we're asking a teacher, what they would do with the finite resources that they receive every year, they always give this answer: the best they can. And we need to start doing more to ensure that the answer is not the best they can, but the most they can, and give them every single resource necessary to ensure that the next generation of leadership, the next generation of our society in Texas is the top of the top. We're not 49th or 50th in the country, but rather top 10 in the country. How do we do that? Let's start by taking away vanity projects that the governor has reallocated millions and billions of dollars to on Operation Lone Star, activating our Texas National Guard to act as border patrol here in our own state. Let's start by not increasing the amount of money that's sent to the border to build a vanity wall that is just as inconsequential and unproductive as his administration has been. Let's start talking about actually creating creative new sources of revenue, like legalizing marijuana and taxing it at an equitable rate, and channeling every single dollar that comes from that into our public education system. We need to start being realistic about what we are doing in the state and not accepting the fact that we are last in education in the United States. I have two nephews that went to the same elementary school that I did, or that go there currently. I have a sister that's teaching in one of the schools in my old district. I have a vested interest in ensuring that not only my friends who are teachers and coaches in my hometown, but also my family who have kids that are going through this system are some of the best educated in the state, and if not the country. And we also have to talk about reducing the stakes, the high stakes testing that's being put on our kids in high school, which does amount to 100% effectiveness as to whether or not they get to progress to the next grade or not. And we need to stop putting that onus of high stakes standardized testing on our kids in elementary school, even middle schools. They're not productive. They're not proper benchmarks to determine whether a kid is qualified to get to the next level. All it does is create a metric by which the state is saying we're able to fail students and fail school districts and schools, and therefore defund them. And that's why charter schools and privatization of schools has become a hot topic for them. They want to take the control away from the electorate. They want to take the control away from people who have and know what's best for their own kids. And so I would challenge anybody to take a closer look as to what's happening in their own school boards, to hear and see how many books have been removed from the library shelves, and to hear how many teachers have left their industry because not only are we asking them to be just teachers and have the hardest job in the world, we're also asking them to protect our kids and act as resource and police officers in the event of a school shooting. So we need to be doing the most we can do to ensure we're increasing the salaries of our teachers, we're increasing the cost of living adjustments for our retired teachers, and we're creating an equitable place for all students to learn and to thrive in our education system.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. So another thing that's on everybody's mind right now, especially people who are members of our group, is the Second Amendment. It can be a very divisive subject to talk about, but as of July 14th, there were 314 mass shootings that had taken place in the United States alone. And Uvalde, Texas, well, it's all so close, right? It's so close to home. It is home. And other shootings across Texas, like Santa Fe, et cetera. It just seems like Texas is really feeling an enormous sense of loss, especially since Uvalde. It's kind of bubbled up to the surface, and we don't want it to die down because we don't want to look away at this point. We want to make sure that we address the issues and that parents elect people into offices that are going to vote for the things that they want, which is gun reform. So what can you do if elected to prevent devastating attacks such as what happened in Uvalde? What would you all do? What is your position on the Second Amendment and gun safety? Okay, we're going to go right ahead. First? Yeah, go ahead, Jonathan. Sorry.
Okay, I'll take it. I always start when this conversation comes up is, and it ties into what we just said. Funding school would be an issue if we didn't have to pay so much money for security. The fact that is a conversation, the fact that, guns, and especially here in my district. So my district is, as we said, very purple, which makes it a very moderate district. We consist of veterans. We consist of non-military educators, doctors, so be it. But there's such a concentration of veterans that the conversation of guns comes up every single cycle. And, I will say I support the Second Amendment to an extent. As a handgun owner myself, I believe in your right to carry a firearm. However, across Texas, we've seen young adults aged 18 to 21 use the law to commit heinous crimes. And then even the law, the open carry law that was passed in the last session, even more. We saw police departments and from all over the state be vocal about how much they didn't want this open carry law to go into effect. And we've seen the GOP go from being the party of policing and such to, just all out whatever they want to do, fascism. And so and Greg Abbott came out with it today saying that he deemed it unconstitutional of raising the age of purchasing an AR-15 to the age of 21. I disagree, and I'll vehemently fight in the state ledge to raise that age to 21. There's nobody under the age of 21 that needs an AR-15 rifle, and also expand comprehensive background checks, close our loopholes, such as the gun show loophole, buyback programs, and we can reduce the amount of firearms in this district and make a safer Texas. I've had parents come to me. I've worked alongside our local police department over the last couple of years to try and put together a buyback program here in our city, and in the district. I mean, there are parents that are finding guns and don't know what to do with them because they're afraid of what has been done with these guns, and so they don't want to take them to the police department because they don't know if it's going to fall back on them if they, and so just creating a safer environment for getting those guns off of the street, getting rid of this open carry law. I do not believe in open carry. I believe that you should have to go through a background check. I believe that our background checks aren't deep enough and they don't communicate enough through other states and police departments. And when we implement those things, do I think it solves all of our issues with guns? No, but I do believe that it makes us a safer Texas. And when reasonable, good people carry guns, we don't have these issues. It's the guns that are getting in the hands of people who have hate in them, who have intent to hurt. And those are who we need to take guns out. And I think if we find ourselves having this conversation more with gun owners, with avid Second Amendment rights people, they will understand. And that's the stance that we're taking here in District 54.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. So Elva, you're up next. Yes.
Oh, thanks. I just want to kind of piggyback something that Jonathan mentioned, and that is that Abbott said that it was unconstitutional for it to be over 21. I mean, he signed the bill into law that said you have to be 21 and older to buy cigarettes in Texas. And you can't tell me, cigarettes are dangerous. I do not smoke. I do not agree with smoking. Please do not smoke, everyone. But at the same time, you're harming yourself, maybe secondhand smoke with someone else around you. But, AR-15s will liquefy you. We heard the reports out of Uvalde. We're never going to forget those children and the two teachers who were killed there. I feel like, as I'm a gun sense candidate through Moms Demand, and one of the things I learned from that wonderful organization is that just because you are not, the gun is not pointed at you personally, doesn't mean that you're not a victim of gun violence. I mean, who did not sob and cry when we heard the stories of those children and the families who were so devastated in Uvalde? I mean, all of us were affected in Texas. All of us were affected in this nation. And in order to combat this type of gun violence, I support secure storage. I have a little girl, she's 6, she can get into anything. It's important to keep guns locked away. And we do it. I am a gun owner. I do not support taking away everyone's guns. I know that that's the myth that people talk about, that Democrats, do not, some do not like guns, some don't, are like me and my family, but we have to be responsible with them. When we had the police chiefs go down to Austin and beg and plead with the House members to tell them that they did not want guns on the street, that they did not want open carry, that it made their job more dangerous. And they just turned a blind eye. They, covered their ears, and they voted for that heinous bill anyway. I also believe, in red flag laws. As a mother, it's very important to me to keep guns out of dangerous people's hands, and not only dangerous for others, but for yourself. Like, we know what the mental health crisis is here in this country. And, Texas does not invest enough into it, although Abbott said he was going to, and he also said he was going to stop rape completely. And, I don't know how that's going for him. I haven't heard an update on that. And maybe I should write him and ask him that. But it's empty promises, nonstop empty promises from Abbott and all of his cronies in Austin. And we need to put a stop to it in November.
Agree 100%. I was pretty stunned by that statement that Abbott made today that made the news about how it was unconstitutional. And it's like, no, you're lying. And I think I actually tweeted that. I said, this is a lie, because it's just pure lie. So I get that. Frank, what is your position?
So my position is almost the same as everybody else's here, right? That I'm a gun owner myself. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in expanding our rights, not restricting them. But I believe also that there is a place that we need to get to where we are doing the best job possible to keep dangerous weaponry out of the hands of the untrained and the mentally unstable. Specifically, in cases where my dad, who served for 35 years in the Marines and Air Force, he's gone through every single training exercise and passed every single firing range test with the expert marksmanship. I feel that people like him who have a law enforcement or military background deserve to have weapons. As a matter of fact, during the passage of the permitless carry bill, we saw that a number of law enforcement agencies and coalitions came together to work against that bill from being passed. Because what does that do? It puts more guns into the hands of people who, with less restrictions, less regulations, might commit crimes with them, may not store them correctly, and they get stolen from their vehicles, may not store them correctly, and now a toddler is dead. And so irresponsibility begets irresponsibility. And whenever we're talking about weaponry, we have an opportunity to do what's right and just. It's just like operating a car, owning a vehicle. Get your registration, take your driver's license test. If you get too old to drive, you get your license taken away. You start getting more increasing regulations based off of certain benchmarks of your life. Why don't we have similar regulations and benchmarks for owning a weapon? Weapons that specifically are meant to do the most harm in the quickest way possible. If you're a hunter and you want to use an AR-15, then you're not a very good hunter. If you want to get out there, use a Ruger 30-06 like my dad and I use, and then shoot some deer. Or if you want to go hunting for some quail or dove, use a shotgun. But you don't need a 100-round high-capacity magazine for an AR-15 in order for you to be a good hunter. I would ask that you find a different recreational sport to partake in. Now, when we're talking about what happened in Uvalde, I have, again, two nephews that are currently in elementary school at the same elementary school that I went to. It's not a Democratic or Republican issue to want our children to come home safe from school. It's an instinct that each and every one of us have. So that way our loved ones, our community members, our neighbors can all come home safely at the end of the day. Now, I would also challenge people who might sit on the wrong side of the fence about this issue to think about this. The shooter in Uvalde had a history of mental instability, had a history of making public Facebook posts saying that he wanted to shoot up a school when he left high school. He turns 18, he buys 2 AR-15s, and he buys hundreds of rounds of ammunition, and nobody blinks an eye. We need to do better. We need to do more to prevent kids, little children, from buying these weapons designed for war, deployed to war, and using them against us here at home. Governor Greg Abbott said he would do something when Parkland happened. He said he would do something when El Paso happened. He said very little when this happened. As a matter of fact, he went on a fundraising tour the same day that this tragedy occurred and collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations. My opponent, when asked by a local publication here in San Antonio whether or not he would urge Governor Abbott to call a special session to raise the minimum age of owning a weapon from 18 to 21, provided this response: no response. That's not leadership. That's being a mouthpiece for somebody that handpicked you to run a race and created a district for you to give you the best chance to win. My solution here would be to absolutely increase the age to own an AR-15 from 18 to 21. If it's so unconstitutional, why did we do it for handguns? How is that possible? And if somebody wants to own a weapon before they turn 21, do what my dad did. Join the Marines right out of high school and do something productive for your nation, for your community, and defend it, not attack it domestically within our own boundaries. And I believe very strongly in that. And my dad taught me how to shoot. He taught me the nomenclature of my weapon. He taught me how to treat it with respect. If that's going to be the minimum to own a weapon, that is absolute legislation that I look forward to sponsoring in order to create a culture of responsible gun ownership, not what we have in the state today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, the other big issue, of course, that's going around Texas right now that has to do with women and reproductive rights. So how have you all all three of you, how have you all felt about the overturning of Roe versus Wade? And have you thought about different ways to grant access for reproductive rights for Texans? So what do you believe could be done if you were elected into office? So let's go ahead and start with Elva.
Yes. Well, it all really just depends on me and my candidate colleagues, how many extra votes that we get in the House. So we're working very hard on a Democratic majority. We're working hard to find votes in our districts for Beto, for Mike Collier, for all the wonderful statewide slate that we have. And it really just depends on if we can pull it off in November. And we really can't pull it off without help from organizations like MAGA the Good, which I love that moniker, by the way, and other organizations and people, folks in our district that believe in us and are helping us. I believe that if I'm elected, I'll file a bill to rescind that terrible law. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I decided to run for this office, because I feel like, as Frank said several times, the government should not be there to restrict our rights. The government should be there to expand our rights. And I do not want my daughters to grow up in an environment and in a country, in a state where they have less rights than I did. And I'm sure that, as you all know, our opponents have just terrible voting records when it comes to abortion. They do not see us as people. They see us as, broodmares, as incubators, and we will not stand for it. As a mother, I had 2 high-risk pregnancies, and I almost died. And, I always tell my older daughter, I love you so much, I wanted another one, and I risked my life again. And I mean, all the moms and mothers and others who are listening now, you know what it's like when you hold your baby in your arms and you love them. But my husband would always tell me that my health and my life were more important to him, and we wanted to have every option on the table. And that's really between me and my doctor. And I will tell you one thing, Greg Abbott, your commercial, I always tell people, my elected official was not holding my hand when I was getting my sonograms. I had to go once a week. I had to get my blood pressure checked once a week. I was in the emergency room several times. I had preeclampsia, and it was just a terrible experience. Being pregnant is a beautiful, magical experience until it's not. And I'm sure that a lot of your members understand that, and you've lived it. And to have our healthcare being just ripped away from us truly makes no sense. Doctors are afraid to perform these life-saving surgeries, and because of the law and the force of the law, the state taking away our rights. And it's just one of those things where you just are so frustrated and angry and you don't know what to do. And I will tell you one thing that has worked for me is just get a turf and go knock on some doors. When I ran for office, I knew it was going to be difficult. I've had more fast food than I care to admit. And, I want to be able, when my daughters are adults, I want to be able to look at them in the eyes and tell them that I did everything I could to protect them, that I did everything I could to make sure that they had the same rights that I did. And I want to make Texas a safer place for them and for all of us. Oh, and one more thing, okay? We have conversations, Jonathan and Frank. We have meetings and we talk a lot. And one of the things that was mentioned the last time we talked was all of our opponents are hiding their records when it comes to abortion. They're stepping back from it. They're talking about women's healthcare access, and they're using all these euphemisms to hide what they did. And there's a saying in Spanish that's called tirar la piedra y esconder la mano, which translates to you throw a rock and you hide your hand. And do not let them hide their hand. They know what they did, and we know what they did. We have 68 days, courtesy of my daughters who are counting down. I know exactly how many days we have until Election Day. And so we have to keep up the energy. We have to keep up the anger. We have to go knock on doors, phone bank, just do everything you can, because these races are winnable. We cannot let this opportunity pass. So we will have to live with this for years. So November is so important. We need to do everything we can for a Democratic majority here in Texas.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, Frank, I'm going to let you go next. So we have about a little bit over about 15 minutes left. So go ahead.
Thank you. And, this is a very sensitive topic for me because, I work closely with victims of sexual assault. I've worked closely with women who were in domestic partnerships that turned abusive, and it's never an easy story to hear when women or people in this state have to make the most sensitive decisions, the most personal decision that they'll ever make in their entire lives, and then to add on to that, we have a government that's so comfortable making the decisions on their behalf, and that's it. So whenever Roe v. Wade passed and whenever the Dobbs decision was passed, it triggered something in the fabric of this nation. We started hearing from Republican white men in this district who said the way that this country and this state are treating our women, our people who get abortions, it's not something that I want to see happen. It's not something that I accept. And for the first time in 25 years, I'm going to be voting for a Democrat to make sure that we change this damn thing. And that's the type of energy that we're seeing and hearing on the ground, and that needs to persist. It needs to persist because Governor Greg Abbott doesn't have a seat at this table. He doesn't have a seat at that decision-making table for any one individual. I don't have a seat at that table. I'll never have to make that decision in my life. But I'm never going to surmise what that decision looks like or feels like on behalf of somebody else, because we are a country that respects our rights and our freedoms. And we need to ensure that we are not taking those freedoms away again. And so I don't trust Greg Abbott to make that decision for any of my family, for any of my friends, or any of my community in the state of Texas. And neither should anybody else. And so I hope that this is a large motivating factor, as we've seen with every benchmark poll, as we've seen in every pulpit that we speak with, that this is going to be the turning point for Texas politics, because this is no longer a digestible party in the state of Texas. This is no longer digestible to people within their own party. They've gone too far. They're not willing to accept or change the things that they've done. So we need to make sure that we elect new leadership in Beto O'Rourke to kick Greg Abbott out of that mansion and make sure we're passing laws that mean the world to people like my community, and for people in my community specifically who are overwhelmingly Latino and don't have access to those types of resources readily available, to where they're having to drive 50, 60 minutes to get to their nearest clinic or their nearest women's health service, right? You don't have these things readily available by design. In an area where people in this community, in my zip code 78221, are dying at a faster rate due to medical morbidities, like access to food, access to healthy food. We live without any type of transportation to get us from point A to point B. We are losing people. And in a state specifically that has one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country, we are not doing enough for our Texas women. We are not doing enough for anybody right now under this current leadership. I want to make sure that people know this, that the fight does not end here in this legislature. We have to federalize it. We have to legalize it. We have to codify it at the highest levels of our government. So that way, people to start having to make a decision that people in California do not have to make, or people in Oregon or Washington aren't having to make. We need to do better as a nation, but it starts here at this state. The stakes have never been higher. And I know that by winning this upcoming November and flipping 9 seats, we can be the generation that prevents any further unnecessary deaths or trauma in our state due to the lack of access from a person like Greg Abbott.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, Jonathan, it's your turn.
I don't know about y'all, but when Frank talks, I'm ready to go knock a packet right now.
Yeah,
Definitely gets me fired up. I love it. In light of time, I won't repeat what my future colleagues have already told y'all. I support and stand next to each one of them and other Democrats across the state in our fight post Roe v. Wade, where we're at now. But I want to share a story with y'all. The timing of it is just so unique to me. 28 years ago today, a young lady would have been 6 months pregnant, and she was going through the tough times of her mother had gotten remarried, and she had moved from Pennsylvania to Texas to be with her new husband, who was stationed here at Fort Hood, and she moved along with her. And at the tender age of 12 years old, she was forced to make a decision of whether to carry out her pregnancy for the sake of her health, for the sake of her future, and she made the decision to carry through her pregnancy. November 19th, 1993, I was born to a 12-year-old girl, my mom, Cherie. I'm thankful that I am here today for the reason that so many of the women that I know have been forced to make that tough decision for whatever reason it may be. And the fact that I had grandparents who were willing to adopt me and raise me and give me the opportunities that I have today is a unique opportunity. The fact of the matter is the GOP cares about fetuses and babies and born. Where's the funding to our foster care system? Making sure that these kids are safe and protected and get to grow up the same way that we do. The party that, preaches the nuclear family and all of that, just the hypocrisy just seeps out of this issue. And so it's a very, very passionate issue for me. But again, in light of time, I don't want to go on and on. My stance on the issues and how I would fight back is on our website. But I want to echo what Frank and Elva said, and that is that if we do not gain the majority in the House, and if we do not win the governor's seat, this issue is something that we're going to have to fight federally until we can change it here in Texas. We cannot go and do it as individuals. We have to do it as a party. And so that's why all of these seats that are up and available, invest in them, work in them, help us win these seats so we can go to Austin and help protect women's bodily autonomy, people's bodily autonomy.
All right. So Jonathan, while you're talking, let's go right ahead and we're going to start wrapping things up. So how can we find you and how can we support you? And what do you need right now in your campaign?
Yes, you can find me at www.hildner, HILDNER, FORTX.com. That is my website. My social media is at Hildner, FORTX. That's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can find me in all of those places. Every dollar right now that we receive is going directly into turning out voters. If you can sign up to volunteer or donate, please do so at my website. There's a link up there. It will take you to Mobilize to sign up for phone banks. I'm sending phone banks out. I've got people all across the country that are calling in for my years in politics, working around the country. We need people to make calls and knock on doors. As I stated before, we have a win number of 34,000 votes in a universe of over 60,000 people. We have numbers in this district without any growth, without any new voters registered. And so because we have that, we need to get on the doors and we need to identify these folks. We need to clean our data up in Van. So there's a bunch of work to do there. We've raised over $50,000, in this race so far. And we believe that if we can raise another $35,000 in the remaining time that we have in this campaign, that we will be able to run the field program that we need with other support coming in to actually win this race. And so, I've got 2 other links to give y'all. If you want to quickly donate, you can go to bit.ly/donate, the number 2JH. And then the link for volunteering is bit.ly/volunteer4JH. And again, we have the opportunity here. This is one of the most flippable seats in the state. This is one of the most underfunded and underorganized seats in the state. And so I need all of y'all's help, to get us over the finish line. So thank you all so much for having me. And I truly appreciate the time.
Okay, Elva, you're up next. How can we support you? How can we find you? Tell us all the things you need.
Yes, thank you. You can find me on my website, elvacurl.com, trying to make it easy. Twitter, elvacurl.com. But you can just go to my website, elvacurl.com, and scroll all the way to the bottom. I have my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And I promise you, I'm not dancing. There'll be no dancing on my TikTok. I'm just, giving everyone a piece of my mind for free. So look me up on TikTok as well. And the way that you can help me is that I have, as Jonathan said, we need help. We need money. We need volunteers. We're going to do phone banking. We do virtual phone banking. And, I've raised $52,000 so far. I need at least $20,000 to reach all these independent voters because I want to talk to them about the issues. It's folks that do not see themselves as Democrats or Republicans. And they are actually wonderful people to chat with, wonderful people to get to know. And, they care about this state. They care about this state and they do not like how things are going. And I want to be able to send them some mail and let them know, get to know me a little bit more and tell them what I stand for and tell them what I want to do for them. I want to serve them and I want to listen to them and represent their values in Austin. So, volunteer, donate, amplify my message on social media and, and just keep doing what we're doing. I think that, we can get more people on our teams. There's no way we could lose.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Frank, you are up next, sir.
Thanks, y'all. And thank you for hearing all of us out and hearing about what exactly it takes to win these seats and to make sure that we are a prosperous state moving forward into the future, not regressing back 50, 60 years. So my website is frankfortexas.com. I left it in the chat already. You can volunteer. You can go ahead and shoot us an email and at info@frankfortexas.com if you want to reach out to me personally. You can also reach out to me personally at my cell, and I'm going to give it out here for everybody to hear, 210-885-0374. I think that the most important part of all of our jobs is to present, and representation means accessibility and transparency. And so I want to make sure that everybody who's listening has an opportunity to reach out to me personally if you'll have any questions. Look, I sit in one of the top 3 most competitive seats in the state of Texas. We are running against an incumbent who has never sat on the House floor. He's been elected twice as a state representative, and every single time he's been defeated by a Democrat 9 months later during the general election. We're looking to make that happen again and make sure he's the first elected representative who's gone on to win 2 special elections to never vote on the House floor. We need your help to do that. So if If you want to donate, frankfortexas.com is the right place to be. If you want to make phone calls or shoot texts on our behalf, frankfortexas.com is the place to go. And I want to once again emphasize how important it is, not only to me and my race, but to every single other state representative campaign here and candidate. You know, if you have the capacity, any amount of your generosity helps us reach an additional voter. It helps us reach out across the aisle and tell people how important each of the stories you heard here today are and relevant they are to each of these people we speak to. I want to make sure that we all know that together we can make the changes necessary so that way our kids and our next generations of Texans are working and living and succeeding in a society that we help to build. And we can absolutely do that today. If we can win and coalesce and organize together to walk away victors on November 8th, we can absolutely get this done. So I look forward to serving with these great candidates that we spoke with today on the Texas House floor to pass meaningful legislation to protect and enrich our lives here in the great state of Texas. And I look forward to serving at the capacity of the youngest legislator in the state of Texas as well. I'll be 29 years old the day session first starts. We're excited to get to work. I was chief of staff for the same office I ran for. I want to utilize the connections and partnerships I've built and catered over the last 7 years to continue doing the great work that my residents expect and our great state of Texas residents need. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you for hearing me out. Once again, feel free to reach out to me if y'all need anything. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you all so much. You guys are all great. And just to let you guys know, Mothers Against Greg Abbott is going to be endorsing all three of you. So you guys will get some information from us soon. And one of the reasons that we're endorsing you is because we believe that you can flip your seats, and we believe that you guys have a unique opportunity to make good change for Texas families here in Texas. So thank you all so much.